You know, I know there's a lot of, and I apologize if I hurt your feelings, but, you know, community gardens, you know, there's a huge focus on this, right? And I know that there's so much invested in community gardens. I used to do community gardens in Berkeley. I love community gardens. I'm a community garden guy. I never felt that it was a model for some future utopian socialist society, right? People that did them with me, they thought that. They were like, see, here we're taking this abandoned piece of land and we're turning it into, and it's good and wholesome food. And it was, the food's delicious if you know, have your own garden, right? But of course, this is utterly naive to think. You know, they found a plot of land in North Berkeley where at that time, believe it or not, a lot of Berkeley, there was blight in Berkeley for a while, you know. It was like there was an economic downturn, the Vietnam War is over, you know. So they found this empty field and they turned it into a community garden, right? It was great, it was fantastic, you know. But of course, what happens in the capitalist system is that because they've turned this blighted lot into a community garden, and because all these energetic, hippie, now slash, a little bit yuppie types that moved into the neighborhood, and they've got now a new coffee shop over here, and they've got some exotic Afghan restaurant over here, all of a sudden the property prices go up, right? And what happens with that? Now this community garden, the plot of land is way too valuable. And the next thing you know, it's been plowed under and there's an apartment complex there, right? And again, why do we need to relearn these issues all the time? You know, Upton Sinclair, who was, you know, wrote The Jungle, and he was Socialist Party candidate here in California. He got almost 1 million votes. He was instrumental in the establishment of what's known as the Berkeley Co-op, right? The food co-op, it began in 1939. What was the idea? The idea was, listen, we're going to pool our resources, we're going to go directly to the producers, the growers, right? In this case, you know, the Salinas Valley, and they were going to the Central Valley. We're going to go talk to these farmers, and we're going to favor the small farmers. We're going to bring the produce to market, and we're going to have a cooperative food market where everybody owns a share in the market. There's no capitalist owner. And, you know, we can run it our own way. And these guys are absolutely revolutionary in what they did. You know, people don't realize this, but it was the Berkeley Co-op that introduced recycling, right? They were the first ones to put ingredients. I remember, I'm old enough to remember, they didn't even have ingredients on products. They used to have to dangle little pieces of paper in the Berkeley Co-op saying this stuff has got carcinogens and, you know, dog poo and everything else. And, you know, and it really hurt a lot of these industries that they had to face up to the fact they're putting garbage in their food, right? The co-op was the one that did, they had daycare centers. Imagine that, women going to shop, or fathers, and they can leave their child to a daycare so they can shop without the kids going, Mommy, 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 I want Fruit Loops, Mommy, Mom, you know. They did so many different things like that. They hired the first full-time nutritionist to work up menus, right? I mean, they were saying, this is how you feed, you know, your family in a nutritious, good, wholesome way, right? They did amazing things, but of course they're operating in a capitalist society. One of the things that they did was they had a labor union. All of the employees at Berkeley Co-op were in a labor union. It was a good union. Good pay, good benefits. Well, Safeway didn't have a union, right? Vaughn's didn't have a union. Over time, labor costs, you know, operating costs over time were far higher at the Berkeley Co-op than they were at Safeway or these other markets, right? This became a problem because they were forced to charge higher prices. Now, there was a lot of loyalty for these co-ops, but immediately it creates this idea that, oh, these co-ops are good, but I mean, you know, they're more expensive. Why are they more expensive? Because Safeway's paying their staff slave wages. How are you going to undo that one? Unless you topple capitalism, is my point, right? You can have all of these nice ideas floating around out there, and the tragic story about all of this, of course, is that, you know, the moderates took over the Berkeley Co-op in the 1980s, and for pragmatic reasons, we don't want to hear any of your commie pinko bullshit. They got rid of a lot of the product boycotts. They got rid of the daycare. That was way too expensive. It became more like a regular market, right? And because their labor costs were so high, they said the only way to reduce them is to expand. Because when you expand, then you have to hire more workers at the lowest wages, and that balances out. See, it's all part of a good market principle. They leveraged the shit out of that place. It never worked. They expanded into areas that could care less about the co-op. People weren't loyal to it. You know who bought them out? Whole Foods, right? Hippy-dippy Whole Foods, you know? And what's the difference between Whole Foods and the co-op? They don't have a union, right? So again, I mean, we have so many examples on the ground floor of all of these strategies, and the argument is, my point is that they don't work. And we got to stop, going to that trough. If I'm going to run for Congress, it's not to win the election. I'm not going to win. And neither is Eugene, by the way. And people talk like, oh yeah, we have a chance. Even if we did win, what's going to happen if we do win? Are we going to go and change the U.S. Congress? What is Eugene going to do? He's going to go change the state assembly? Don't you see that as being rather naive to think that you could do that?